A scruffy little girl was tied to a horse-drawn carriage. The girl gently reached out and touched the man's cheek. Then, feeling slightly reassured, she leaned against his shoulder. They arrived at a convent. Only then did the father carefully untie the rope. The nuns at the convent were all a bit curious. The little girl's body was covered in scars of varying degrees. The man briefly explained his purpose. He was then invited into the office by the headmistress. Mary was entrusted to the care of a nun. When Mary sensed that the smell around her was unfamiliar, her emotions instantly became agitated. She stumbled around in all directions without any sense of direction. The nuns nearby came over to help, but they still could not calm Mary down. Mary had been unable to hear or see since childhood. What made her parents even more helpless was that Mary did not even have basic speaking ability. She had lived in loneliness and darkness for years. This had made her personality very strange and irritable. Even worse, she could not express the pain inside her. Day after day, she could only move closer to the edge of breakdown under repression. Regarding Mary's special condition, her parents had no solution for many years. In her panic, Mary climbed up a tree. The helpless nuns had no choice but to call her father. But even now, her father had no better solution. He could only wait for Mary to come down on her own. There was a nun in the convent named Margaret. The headmistress ordered her to bring Mary down from the tree. Margaret used all her strength and finally climbed up to a branch where Mary was. Margaret did not act rashly. She simply used her finger to gently touch Mary's hand. Sensing the kindness, Mary did not become agitated. Instead, she slowly responded to Margaret. Then Mary used her other hand to gently touch Margaret's cheek. At the same time, she felt her warm breath. But with a shout from the headmistress, Mary's emotions became agitated again. In the end, Mary sensed her father's presence, so she obediently climbed down from the tree into her father's arms. The headmistress refused the father's request. They could only teach deaf and mute girls. Faced with Mary's special condition, they were unable to properly take care of her. In the end, the father could only leave with Mary in disappointment. However, in that brief moment of contact, Margaret felt that she had encountered a soul, a small and fragile soul trapped in confinement. Yet she seemed to see a light within that soul, shining through the iron bars of a prison. Before climbing the tree, Margaret had thought Mary was just like a wild person, or a small animal. But after she climbed the tree, she realized that Mary had actually been waiting for her. Mary had been sealed in a dark and silent world her entire life. Margaret did not know how to communicate with her. She wanted to experience Mary's dark world, so she plugged her ears with earplugs and asked a colleague to cover her eyes. Although the attempt ultimately failed, Margaret still proposed to the headmistress that she take care of Mary. The headmistress agreed with Margaret's idea, but after all, getting a deaf and mute girl to break her silence was an extremely difficult task, and Mary also had visual impairment. This made it an incredibly difficult challenge. However, Margaret still wanted to try. She did not want Mary to remain trapped in her own cage for her entire life. Someone had to help her out and teach her how to communicate. So Margaret went alone to Mary's home. At this time, Mary was alone in a small house. There was an old knife on the table. Mary carefully picked up the knife. It seemed that the knife had a strange attraction to her. She repeatedly smelled it over and over again. Margaret quietly approached Mary. She gently reached out to touch Mary's face. This sudden contact frightened Mary. Mary knocked over a chair and ran out from under the table. Margaret desperately called out, trying to tell Mary it was her. But in Mary's world, there was only touch and smell. The sudden fear left her no time to think. For a moment, the two caused chaos everywhere. At that moment, Mary's parents arrived just in time. Margaret stopped what she was doing. Without the sensation of touch, Mary gradually calmed down. Margaret then explained her purpose. The parents, somewhat relieved, entrusted Mary to Margaret. Before leaving, the mother gave Margaret a small knife. This was Mary's favorite object. She liked it even more than the doll beside her. The mother hoped this knife could help build some trust between them. After a brief farewell, the three of them walked along a tree-lined country path. The father finally put Mary down. Although he felt reluctant, for Mary's growth he had no other choice. In the end, he helplessly took out a belt from his pocket.